Welcome to Osnaha's November Education Session. I'm Laurel Smith, an Osnaha board member and chair of the Education Committee. Thank you for joining us today. A couple of announcements. Just as a reminder, you will all be muted to avoid noise disruptions during this session. We will have Q&A at the end of the presentation. You may also send your questions at any time using the Zoom chat function, or hold them until the end when we open up and unmute everyone for your questions. We are recording this session and it will be posted on our website for future reference. And now a bit about our speaker, Joan Marlow. Joan is a lifelong learner and forever teacher. For the past 14 plus years, her business, Peaceful Easy Healing, offers her the means to live her passion and purpose of helping individuals create and then live their best lives through life and wellness coaching, education, and as a board-certified patient advocate. For the past 12 years, she's focused on supporting the needs of seniors, caregivers, and families, especially those impacted by dementia. Nobody should navigate the healthcare system alone, and Joan helps seniors have a voice in their healthcare and life. Please welcome Joan Marlow. Thank you, Joan. The floor is yours. We look forward to hearing.
The floor is mine. Thank you. Thank you so much, Laurel. Thanks for those kind words. And, you know, as you hear from my background, I have been dedicated to the world of seniors for a goodly number of years. I didn't understand why I was there in the beginning, but as the years have gone on, I have become more and more embedded in this world. And the story I'm going to be telling today relates to my latest venture, and that is to become a board-certified patient advocate. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story as to why that happened, because I believe the whys are vitally important to us. And in speaking about whys, the theme of this program is going along with, following through, I should say, with what your theme was for your conference this year related to collaboration. This is going to be a presentation that will present to you benefits, ideas, thoughts, thinking outside the box about why you might want to partner or bring into your world on a consultancy basis, on a help basis, a board-certified patient advocate. So that's what we're looking at today. So we'll start out by saying the power of advocacy is also known as, if my slide decides it wants to move. There we go. YDKWYDK. As you ponder that for a second, okay, that second is up. What that simply means is you don't know what you don't know. And living in the world that you live in as well, as far as being an agency, helping people to be able to stay in their house for as long as they can, and providing the services that they need to help them stay in that house in a non-medical fashion, as well as the support of affiliate members of Osnaha. We never know what we are going to be getting into when we go into a family's life. As well as the seniors that we are working to help, they also don't know what they don't know. And that really becomes a mystery. I think part of all of our roles out here in the world is to ensure that they receive the education and the knowledge. And as my description is, I'm a lifelong learner, a forever teacher, and I'm in my joy point with educating. And as I think about all the members of Osnaha, especially the board members, because I'm involved with them as well, I help with the strat session on an annual basis. The folks that are out there also sharing the benefits as to why families should be considering using Osnaha members. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit, because the same thing holds true. Why should people be looking at using a board-certified patient advocate? So the question becomes, what happens if you don't even know what question to ask? Which is many times the case, especially for our clients. They don't know. They've never aged before, and here they are, and every day is a new day. So they also don't understand what's going on, and they need help and they need guidance, and that's what we're here for. This slide I have used forever. It's almost in every single one of my presentations because it's just something that makes sense. I call them the 4 A's of change. It starts out with awareness and ends up with action. As an educator, both you being out in the world helping your clients find out how they're going to live their best life, and myself doing the same thing, I provide lots of points of awareness, lots of choices, because my ultimate desire is once someone has heard something, some information that might be new to them, or it might be something that they knew ages ago and they'd forgotten about, or it just wasn't the time for them to now put it into play. So we take that awareness and we're going to turn it into action. What are you going to do with the information that you have now in your hands? But there are two steps in the middle. One is acknowledgement, simply meaning when you hear information that you go, that is sort of making sense to me. That's resonating with me. That's making sense. Maybe I should decide to bring that into my life. And this is a story that happened to me. It'll be 2 years ago in February. I found myself in the hospital, and it was under a suspicion of heart attack or a stroke. We didn't know what it was. I had woken up that morning and my jaw was locked in an open spot, open mode. And as the morning went on, more and more things just weren't right. I got in the shower and didn't know how to use a bar of soap, didn't know how to use a washcloth. I tried to feed my cat. I missed the bowl completely putting her food in. So I knew there were some things that were going on with me. And of course, I did the thing that everybody does. I get in the car, I start driving, and I call a girlfriend to sort of coach me through this process. What do you think we should do? The decision was I should go to a hospital, but we had to think about which hospital to go to, because as we all know, there are some hospitals that aren't as good as others. We have our personal experiences, then of course we have the stories of the street. So I go to the hospital, and then my journey really began. This was still during COVID, and what happened was right off the bat, they started treating me just fine. They come back in if they took a COVID test. They came back in and told me I was positive. And I looked at them kind of strangely because I really didn't think I was positive at all. I had no symptoms whatsoever. But the world really flipped upside down after I got that acknowledgement. That acknowledgement then put me under lock and key. It put me in a room. I was on a floor with everybody else who was COVID oriented, and people were coming in completely in PPE. So I got to experience the isolation that so many of our seniors experience as well. So I was experiencing all this as I go through this process. Along the way, there were many other stories, many other things that happened to me that I spent a lot of time crying because all I kept thinking was, oh my God, what's happening to our seniors? Not a senior like me who has a lot of chutzpah and a lot of tenacity, and I'm strong and independent, and I'm also from New Jersey, so look out. But I'm talking about the seniors that are timid, the ones who are afraid to make waves, the ones who are afraid to ask questions. What is going to happen to them if they were facing some of the things I faced, which included a doctor deciding that my blood pressure was wrong, my heart was beating too fast, and they start putting drugs into me. And I know, my cardiologist knows what's going on with me personally, but they wouldn't listen to me. Then my other piece de resistance was at the end of this whole affair, which ended up being 2 nights, so this is now a Sunday afternoon, they decided to release me, and I start getting dressed, and I lost the eyesight in my left eye. I ring my buzzer. A nurse finally comes in and she goes, how can I help you? And she's waving my discharge papers. And I said, I can't see out of my left eye. And she says, are you telling me you want to spend another night? And I said, no, what I'm really telling you is I think I need to get out of here. And this had been something that, again, auric migraines or whatever the devil they are, I'd never been in a doctor's office or in the presence of a doctor so they could actually see what might be going on. But that was how I was dismissed. And she allowed me to walk out of the hospital not having eyesight in one of my eyes. And my first stop when I got home was I stopped at my local Walgreens. I took the prescription that they gave me into my pharmacist and said, what is this? Why do you think they gave this to me? And are there any contraindications of taking this medication against the things that I'm on right now? Which I have been told as I share this information with people, as I do this kind of presentation in many environments, they're saying, oh my God, it's the wisest thing you possibly could have said. But after that event, I decided that I need to take things in my own hands, and I needed to become a true board certified patient or healthcare advocate. That was my action item that I took. So as I spin this around and have this now sent to you to be thinking about what and how you might be able to use these elements of awareness to come about with action, I'm going to share with you some of the information about what a board certified advocate, patient advocate does, how it comes about, just to give you the depth of knowledge. So you might be able to decide that, that makes sense to me. Oh my goodness, I have clients that might be able to benefit from this. I've got families that might be able to benefit from this. And then accepting it to say, all right, let me see if I can go out there and find a board certified patient advocate that might become part of our team, that might be a support system, because that's what I'm doing. I'm working with folks in the non-medical home care environment when they have a client, which I'm sure we all have, that's beyond their scope of practice. They know the client needs help, but it's beyond that scope of practice. And all of us are trying desperately to stay within our lane of practice, our lane of scope. But sometimes it's really, really difficult because we get connected to our clients. We want to help them in some way, shape, or form. So this is what we're going to talk about, how there might be ways that we might be able to work together. So sharing a little bit about this patient advocate certification board in contrast to OSNAHA and how they're created. The Patient Advocate Certification Board is also a nonprofit organization. This certification was started in 2012. And again, instead of having an association like OSNAHA, this program went the steps and said, okay, let's develop a certification test. Let's develop the standards and so on and so forth. So they went through all the process that had to be taken. Again, their desire was to elevate the professional standards, to enhance individual performance, as well as looking at providing an ability to measure fundamental competencies in the practice of a professional patient advocate. This is a relatively new profession. So again, they're finding their way through this methodology. Of course, they have a vision, and of course, they have a mission. Their vision includes not only within this certification or credentialing, whoever created that, but what else they're doing is this whole thing is they're looking at finding a way to champion patients' well-being. And aren't we all in that position? The mission, again, is to establish and maintain knowledge domains, skills, ethical standards. Most of the evaluation is done for the exam related to ethics, related to doing the right thing. This required at times me, as I was studying the materials, to actually look at how I might have done it before I understood the quote unquote right way or best way to do it based upon the standards that were now laid before me. So it was rethinking things. It was taking the time to reach out to some others to ask opinions before you jump in. So it was very much a relearning process. Who do you have that you can lean on? Who do you have that you can reach out to that are specialists in the particular field? Because as a patient advocate, there are many, many patient advocates that are nurses, doctors, naturopaths, physical therapists, all these different arenas who have left the medical profession in that mode to say that they can't practice medicine the way they want to practice it. They want to help the patients more. They want to help consumers more. So they've now become patient advocates. But once they make that jump, even though they come in with a nursing degree, a nursing certification, a physical therapist certification or degree, they can't practice that. All we can do is practice patient advocacy, being the voice for the patient. And doesn't that sound familiar about when we go out and we hire caregivers? What does that look like? Even though the caregiver comes in with a lot of expertise, or possibly, they have an RN or an LPN license, they can't practice in that mode. So they can only do what's happening within the confines of what the standards are for OSNAHA. So what we're looking at, some of the words in this last bullet under mission, we're looking at collaborating with healthcare consumers. And what we're trying to achieve is patient and family-centered care, which is exactly what OSNAHA is doing as well. We're also looking professional development for certified advocates. Part of my certification process is every 3 years, I have to have earned 30 CEs that requalify me because I'm staying ahead of the game. I continue to learn. I continue to learn about new processes, new resources that are out there, or new findings that are out there. And the beauty that can happen in this world in partnering and collaborating with folks that are in the non-medical world, in-home non-medical, is the fact that I can share this as well, because we are all always looking for additional resources, because we also know that our clients are coming to us with many times they have many different kinds of illnesses going on for them. They have many chronic conditions. They have let themselves go for way too long. They might have severed relationships with families, or families have severed themselves in a relationship because of what's going on. So we never know. Again, we don't know what we're going to walk into. But what we're looking for is a way to sort of pull all this stuff together to serve the needs of our clients. Again, promoting and professionalizing patient advocacy. So looking at OSNAHA, just real briefly, looking at the vision and the mission of OSNAHA, again, looking at some of the words in this description. This comes right off of your website. Again, providing provider businesses for consumers by requiring members of the association to adhere to association's strict standards and code of business ethics. That's very important. The PAC board, the Patient Advocate Certification Board, as well as OSNAHA, we both have programs that if consumers have issues with anything that any of us have done, there is a sounding board. They can go and they can put in a complaint. So there is a way that we can keep on top of this. For OSNAHA World, they were looking at to avoid or not looking at having a licensure here to make sure that our consumers are getting the best possible care they can get with reputable organizations, because they are following the guidelines of OSNAHA. Again, they were looking at consumer protection and advocacy. Also, OSNAHA is a coalition of businesses that are affiliated something in the in-home care industry. So again, we're building resources amongst ourselves. So the patient advocates want to be part of this as well. Again, we're looking at a code of business ethics, minimum standards of delivery of services. Again, a code of business ethics, we can't get away from that. That's vitally important for all of us. Looking back at the Patient Advocate Certification Board, here were the domains of study for part of the exam. The exam itself is 150 questions that covered all of these different areas. And the ethical and legal and practice standards were the highest rated or the highest ranked in this. The test was 3 hours long, and you had to pass with an 80 or an 85. But we're looking at all these things that were decided upon based upon roles and responsibilities of what a patient advocate does and might do in the future, because this is an evolving environment. But you're looking at the third point in there, the communication, interpersonal relationships, because sometimes you've got to ease the situations that are happening at hand. And again, for agencies, the caregivers that you send out to meet with your clients, to spend time with your clients during their term with them, there's also some guidelines as far as how closely related you can get to one of those individuals, as far as looking at HIPAA regulations and privacy and so on and so forth. And if you're looking at utilizing your care managers, this is a lot for them to take in. So a patient advocate can help by offloading that and allowing a care manager within the in-home care world, the non-medical world, to do what they're doing and allow someone else to partner with them to handle some of those issues that are going on in the family, etc. We're also looking at the PAC board definition of what a patient advocate is. A professional who provides services to patients and those supporting them, navigating the complex healthcare continuum. In case you have missed out, the healthcare world is pretty crazy right now. one of the big things that I have clients coming to me now with their question is, so many doctors are retiring. So many doctors who've been around for years and years and years are saying, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. It's time for me to retire. And so I'm helping clients actually find new specialists. I'm helping them find new PCPs. I help them in all those arenas just to give them the information, because some of them have had their doctors for 10, 15, 20 years, and now they don't even know where to start. And again, you're looking at this lack of savviness related to computers and just not sure because they're reading stuff and it's not making sense. So I go in and help them make sense out of what they're trying to figure out. I work directly with the clients, or I work with their legal reps. I work a lot with POAs. And my bottom line in all of this is, or any board certified patient advocate, is to make sure that the clients have a voice in their care and they've got the information to help promote informed decision making, because that's where the rubber meets the road. The titles that patient advocates go under can be anywhere from a healthcare advocate to a navigator to a coach to a case manager. All of those things fit. And so that's where the broadness happens, which also brings about some issues in our being able to find our liability insurance. So I love partnering with the non-medical world, because they might be able to provide the opportunity to provide a ride to a client that we're sharing to a doctor's office. And then I would be the one that would go into the doctor's office and sit with them during the session. So there's lots of things that we can do to work together. Bottom line in all of this, ensuring the patient or the client has a voice and information to make informed decisions. So let's look back at some of the things as far as why and how we've gotten to where we are, and where the importance of patient advocacy comes in, as well as the things that you are seeing on a day in, day out basis that might be causing you frustrations and stress to not only you, but also to your clients. First of all, medical errors. And the definition of a medical error is a preventable adverse effect of medical care, whether or not it's evident or harmful to the patient. What's coming out now is that there are so many errors that are happening. They happen in the operating room, they happen in the labs, and they fix it before the client or the patient needs to know. And they have no right to even have to tell them. They don't have responsibility to even inform them that an error took place or that there's something wrong. And so it's a mystery. So this is a medical error. It's the third leading cause of death in the US, and they're estimating between 250 and 500,000 deaths per year are happening due to medical errors. And medical errors can include misdiagnoses, billing errors, incorrectly identifying a patient, and surgical errors. I am hearing, I've got some papers in front of me here. So the levels of misdiagnoses at this point in time, what they're estimating is that for misdiagnoses, there's approximately 12 million Americans that are getting misdiagnoses per year. Billing errors, one of the statistics is 1 in 7 patients in Medicare in a hospital setting is the victim of a medical error. People are being billed double. People are being billed to the wrong numbers. I have a client right now that we had a mystery bill, and we found out that somehow her Medicare number was attached to someone else's information. So we're trying to sort that out. These are the things that I work on as well. And again, you might hear about these things, but you don't have the time or the effort or the energy to work with this. Incorrectly identifying a patient. How many times are they coming into the room before you have any kind of procedure and asking you, what's your name? They're checking your name tag and so on and so forth. And then you have the surgical error piece. Over the past 2 weeks, I've had 2 people telling me that they were part of a possible misstep whereby something was supposed to be done to their left leg, and lo and behold, they were going to do the procedure to the right leg. And the joke was from the person that they were talking to, oh, your left leg, not my left leg. And you just go, okay, that could be an issue. I have a group of very proactive women down in the Sun Lakes area in South Chandler who are strong, independent women. They're all retired. They are all relatively healthy. They've got full schedules. They do their pickleball, they do their golf, they have their wine together. However, they now have me on their speed dial in the event something happens to them. And their line to me has been, if I fall down playing pickleball and I hurt my right wrist, I want you to be by my bedside to make sure they fix my right wrist and don't do something bad to my left wrist. It came out of their mouths, and I just went, okay, this is a real deal. So, and we all love people that are proactive and thinking about that. In some cases, I'm also working with families whereby well, we can talk about this in a little bit, I guess. The failing healthcare system, let's talk about that. Medical errors, 7,000 deaths a year, and are responsible for 1 out of 20 hospital admissions. That could happen because the drugs were taken incorrectly. They didn't have the right information when they were doing something at home. They ended up in the hospital. Something wasn't explained to them right. Again, hospitalized patient is subject to at least 1 medication error per day. That's why my first stop was when I left that hospital, went to Walgreens and said, what is this medication? Why am I taking it? Am I taking it correctly? Because my trust factor, my trust level was lowered by so much. Then we have communication. 50% of patients leave their primary care not understanding what the physician told them. And only 9% of the time do patients participate in clinical decisions. Communication is huge. But what happens here is, in many cases, your PCP is given a total of like 7 minutes to talk to you. What can they possibly tell you in 7 minutes? And we also know that they are now mandated to provide them some kind of education, mandating to give them education as they leave. So they print off what the conversation was that day. They print off things and they give you this stack of paper, but they don't even understand that the person might never read it. They might be overwhelmed with that, and that might confuse them even more so. And again, they're being told what to do because so many patients say, hey, if the guy with the white coat says it, it must be gospel. It must be the thing that's important right now, and I'm going to do it. And they don't ask questions. And again, nearly 1 in 5 patients suffered an adverse event in the transition from hospital to home. I'm preaching to the choir when I talk to the folks in the non-medical world who get involved in helping clients when they are transitioning from the hospital or from rehab to home. Many times it's because they were pushed out sooner than they should have been. That's one thing based upon the rules and guidelines of Medicare or what other insurance company it is. Many times it's just this problem with communication. I have a client right now that she was in the hospital. They called me Sunday morning and they said, okay, we're releasing her in a couple of hours. Here you have 10 different rehabs to send her to. Choose the top 3 and let us know what you choose. So I busily did my homework and did my research and reached out to the senior world that's involved in those areas in the rehab to understand where the quality is right now, where the best care will be. And by the time I called back the hospital to give them my choices, they said, oh, we've changed that completely. We're sending her off to a group home. And I was, it's one of those days when you use the term flabbergasted. Really? Okay. Again, and you're asking why. No one could tell you. No one could tell you why all those things happened. And that's just, again, the communication is not good. Health literacy. The definition of that is the degree to which individuals have the capacity to obtain, process, and understand basic health information and services needed to make appropriate health decisions. Our clients are not doctors. They aren't nurses. They are just humans making it through the world. They've had their careers, and it might not have been in the world of medicine. They might never have been sick a day in their life. And here they are now hearing information that's completely going over their head. It's completely baffling them. They are terrified, and that's the other thing. They're now, have so much fear that they're dealing with. And they're asked immediately to make a decision, and they don't even understand what it is they're making a decision about. They don't know where to get the information because, again, they're almost working in a silo. And what we're learning is nobody in the world right now can work in a silo. You've got to have outreach. You've got to have others involved to be able to provide the education and the know-how so that people can make their best decisions. What we're trying to do is just help our clients, help our patients. And it's only 12% of adults have adequate health literacy skills. So when they have a medication that might sound the same as another medication, they might choose to say, well, then I'm not going to take this medication. And lo and behold, that might have been an essential medication. The other situation is dealing with medication lists. We have situations now where people use a variety of means to get their health care, health information, where they go to get their prescriptions. They might be using an online process for a 90-day type of thing. They might be going to Walgreens to get one. They might be going to Mexico to get another to save some money. They might be going to Bashas' to use the pharmacy there because they're shopping to save money in different ways. Lo and behold, we find out that folks are on possibly the generic of a drug as well as the name brand of the drug at the same time. That can be extremely, extremely dangerous. People don't understand what the problems are. They're taking a medication, and they're on a blood thinner, and they continue to take aspirin. They don't understand that danger, what that danger is, because you say, oh, what can a little aspirin do? Or that was something that they completely missed. And I'm meeting up with these people all the time. And I also face those issues all the time because for me, I've got my own medical issues, etc. And I have always had to be my own advocate. And as I said, I'm not afraid to ask the questions. And it's amazing the information that I can glean when I ask a clarifying question. And I'm sure the doctors and the nurses and the medical people aren't going to be giving that information out. So, as in so many of my classes also, when I provide all this information that might be making your heart go pitter-patter faster than you want it to, just take a deep breath in and let that out, and let us continue on our merry way. So, what we haven't talked about is truly what the patients value in all of this, because so many times we're just plowing over them, and they're in an emergency situation. They're trying to do the best they can. They've been doing the same thing for years and years and years, seeing the same doctor for years and years and years, and the system keeps changing within their doctor's role, and they don't get that. They don't understand. Things are happening fast. So one of the things that they do value immensely is a relationship with their physician, especially someone like their PCP, their regular physician, their general physician, their general doc. This is the one that, and I call them the ringleaders. Somewhere when you have a variety of medical situations, you've got to have a doctor in place that actually knows all the pieces and parts of what's going on, who your specialists are, what kind of meds you're on. I so believe the importance of portals. I help my clients use their portals, and I many times have the ability to go onto the portals so we can also ask questions of the physician, build a relationship possibly with their nurse practitioners or their PAs, because those folks also are the ones you see many more times than you see the physician. But a relationship with someone in that medical field is very important. Evidence-based medicine, which simply means they don't want something that's a trial and error process. They want to know something that has been proved to work. Many times we're using medications that are now off use because some studies have been done. Well, the studies are there, and does that satisfy you to say, do I want to do that or not? When we look at using alternatives, many times people don't look at using, or they just only like alternatives. They get pushback from the medical profession, from the Western world versus the Eastern world. So what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do, and all the patient advocates are trying to do, is allow for the opportunity to learn as much as they can about all the options that are out there for them, all the alternatives, finding out what they don't know, because again, we don't know what we don't know. And there are things that are out there that are different. Care coordination. And care coordination, the definition is such. And again, as I shared a little bit ago, many of us have teams of doctors, and I'm calling many of us as a senior, as someone who has chronic conditions. I'm fortunate I've got a cadre of doctors, specialists in Mayo. Mayo can corral all of them together. They talk amongst themselves. But it used to be when I was getting involved in Mayo, I also had called them my street docs, my regular docs that were here during my mini crises and whatever along the way. And they all worked together fine until sooner or later, both the Mayo docs and the street docs were saying, you can't respond to two different chiefs. And so I had to move on, but I still had to have
I'm
somebody.
late for an appointment.
Say again, please. So we still had to have some means of gathering everybody together under one roof so that we did have someone that was managing everything that's going on. In many cases, a case manager can do that for you. In many cases, a board certified patient advocate can do that for you. And again, the goals of coordinated care are to improve your health outcomes. So again, you might need lots of players in the game because no one, again, in the world of specialists and whatever else, not one person can satisfy all the needs that we have in the health world, as well as eliminating redundant tests and procedures. One of the surprises that many people have is when they get their bills, or they start getting bills, or they see that a claim has been denied, because what Medicare or whatever will say was, whoops, a mistake somehow happened, it slipped through the cracks, you already had this test, we paid for it once, and we aren't going to pay for it again. So I help people go through and go through the complaint system and file a question about how can I get this rectified? How can someone else take a look at this, another set of eyes, and make this happen? And then what do patients value? All of these different points. And again, I'm sure none of them are surprising at all. Listening skills are so vitally important because many times we feel that a doctor comes in, they come in with their little laptop now, they sit down and they're busy typing as you're talking to them. Are they fully listening? Are they fully giving you their full attention? And again, I go to my appointments with my clients, that's one of the roles that we do, one of the ways we help. Before we go into a client appointment, a patient appointment, I work with my patients and my clients and say, what are you looking at for an outcome? What are your concerns? And I reach out to all the family members that might, in certain cases, where family members might be involved and they want to make sure that mom or dad is asking the right questions for their level of understanding as well. Communication is very important. Confidence, again, the confidence is so important. Tell me why we are doing what we're doing. Tell me about this new nurse practitioner you have. Looking at those kinds of things, patients have a right to know that, and that has sort of been wiped away. Patients also want the doctor to know their personal situation because, again, they're interrelationship. But in some cases, that doesn't hold true because the doctors don't have time, or the doctors are transitioning, or you're in a process where you spin the wheel and you see whatever doctor happens to be on staff that day. So there are lots of different things, the different ways that we're providing medicine right now, and dealing with doctors is very, very different. Being innovative with finding solutions. That's vitally important. I remember the first time I brought up considering to my GP, who I adore and love, and he's been with me for years, but he was brand new. And this is at the time where medical marijuana was just coming out. And I was asking him whether or not a cream would work that had cannabis in it because I got Raynaud's. He laughed at me and he wanted to know how I was going to smoke that salve. And I said to him, nobody laughs at me. Nobody makes fun of my questions. We're in this together. And if this is going to be your attitude, I'm out of here. And he sat up straight and he just said, okay, I consider that as a notice. I will go and find out more. And he learned about how medical marijuana and cannabis is being used to help a variety of conditions because he had never had anybody that asked the question. So now he's got another tool in his toolbox as well. And the bottom line with all of this, we're helping folks have peace of mind. They value that as well. The role of the advocate in this whole process is provide guidance and assistance. And again, we're helping them make informed decisions. That's important. But keep in mind, it takes a team. It takes a team, the team that you have as well. The resources that you have can join with the resources that the board certified patient advocates have. And we also work amongst ourselves. Board certified patient advocates have different levels of specialties as they come into this world and what they want to do. We've got some that are excellent with doing billing questions. They'll dig through that. They will go in and put all the questions in there. They will file all these appeals. They will do all that. I've got some patient advocates in my world that specialize in specific kinds of diseases. It could be anything from Parkinson's to dementia and Alzheimer's to diabetes. So they're very, very specialized. Some deal with the hard cases. Some are actually involved in now these things. There's a malpractice suit going on. They're involved in doing the forensics in that regard, where they're learning tons of stuff. So each one of us has a specialty area as well. So we can reach out to this team to help you resolve your concerns with your clients too. But again, all we're trying to do is helping clients make informed choices and access their resources. We cannot share our opinions about anything. We can tell them a story about what happened, but we can't include an opinion. We can't say, this is what I recommend you do. The response usually is, here are 3 choices. I can tell you what I know about them. Here's the information for you to find out more. But I can't say, this is the one that I strongly recommend. None of that. And again, as I shared earlier, even if someone has a nursing background, they cannot perform or offer any of that medical care that relates to that specific specialty that they have. So even if they have the clinical credentials, they have to go away. That can't be used. For my backup person, I've got an RN as my backup. She helps me review medication lists and so on and so forth. She also covers for me when I'm away. Because again, in a lot of ways, I have folks that are relying upon me that if something happens to them, they want me to be there by their bedside. They want me to be there to be their quarterback. They want me, in some cases, I am like number 2 on their POA list. And if something happens to dad, because all the kids are out of state, I will have all 3 of those kids on that phone should dad end up in the hospital or end up in some kind of a situation that he needs assistance. So they rely upon me as well. So there's a whole variety of things that happen. So advocates, these are all the things that we, within our standards of practice, can do. Providing education and resources is very important to us. Collecting and reviewing information is very important. Understanding what's happened to a client now that we've got them on in our situation, what are we going to do to help them? Where are they? What kinds of things have happened with them? Communication and collaborating. tons of that. So for my clients that I'm here helping mom or dad and they're all out of state, every time I get done with doing something with dad to a doctor's appointment, I send them a review. I might send them the notes from that doctor's visit. I might send them the concerns that the doctor had. We are involved constantly with this process. The same thing would hold true in dealing with one of the agencies in the non-medical world, understanding how we piggyback on each other, how we can back each other up, coordinating benefits and insurance. I've helped people that have conditions that don't allow them. They can't even dial the phone because they've got the tremors so bad. They've got issues with their voice. They're embarrassed to try to talk to customer service. I've helped people try to understand what they have for their long-term care plans because they don't know where to go. They don't know who to go to for this kind of help and assistance. Needless to say, every day is a new day for me. And again, when I talk about helping all these different things, I've got a client, his tremors are so bad, he's within the VA system. I don't know if any of you have tried to call into the VA. The laundry list of their telephone tree is huge, huge. And you have to write them down to see, and then you've got to call back because you missed it all and you got to hear it again. And so I help my clients so that they don't have to go through that because that is just making them more stressed. It's making them feel that they are losing out. It's making them feel like they're more behind the curve. I'm trying to boost the morale in the element of self-esteem, etc., as my clients age. Again, bottom line is all about informed decisions. I've talked about medication lists. Like I said, I'm not in the medical field, but I get the medication lists and I either have a sit down with their doctors or with the NPs, the nurse practitioners or their PAs. I will also then have my assistant review these medication lists for things that might need to be red flagged and just say, what's going on here? Why are we taking that? Because this coordination of care, there are so many doctors that so many people are going to. Looking at the medical timelines, that alone is overwhelming. Some of these folks have 5 doctor's appointments in a week. What does that mean? And what happens after each doctor's appointment? Where are the follow-ups? What are the expectations? Getting the tests lined up for them. Having the testing mechanisms being brought into the home versus taking them out. There's all kinds of things that I'm trying to help them with. Again, helping them with their applications. And if that's not my thing, I send them off to the folks that help with that. I send them off to the folks that can help them create their estate documentation. That's very important. And a lot of them don't have that. And a lot of them, what happens, especially if we're dealing with some cognitive impairment, we've got to get these things done while or before they have that diagnosis. So we look at that. I go to their medical appointments, as I said, I help them with information. And again, my whole thing is about helping to support for solutions. For those that don't have local families, bottom line, it's all peace of mind. How do I assess help? Basically getting to know my clients intimately. I have the availability, and when we sign on, we establish our expectations, and I tell them that we have long questionnaires. I need to know more about you and whatever, far more so than typically I think a non-medical agency has the time to do. I end up having more information and insight about my clients than even their medical providers do because I understand the whole bevy of how many doctors they have and so on and so forth. Here comes my cat across the screen. And again, this is what helps. This is how helps an advocate be effective. And again, how do we gather information? Again, very similarly to what happens when we do home visits, when a case manager goes in, the care manager goes in to first do an assessment with a new client, evaluating what's going on in the house. Are you seeing things that are popping out at you? Is it a time that you have to get other specialists in here? Are you seeing that there's no food in the refrigerator? So I do a lot of those same things that you do. Do we have to get APS involved? Is it a higher level of care than what they think is needed right now? I talk with the client, their family. At times I have their friends as well, because their friends many times have been their advocates and their friends are now extremely aggravated and frustrated because they can't get things done. I am not afraid to ask questions. Open-ended questions are the way to go. They love yes and no questions, but I really push them to get those explanation answers out there. And listening, I love to listen. Again, this is one of the tools from my coaching experience. And again, I'm a really good listener, and I take what they share with me, I spit it back with them, and I go, that's not really what I meant. So I spend that kind of time. I do read through the medical records and their notes. And again, I know enough to be dangerous, but at least I have an idea of what's going on. I've found people to find recently. Someone in my world said that she just got a new client, and in the report, the woman was a client, and they're reading about a prostate issue. And we're going, there must be something desperately wrong with these notes. Something is not working out right. Again, what do? We help people find their voice. We provide peace of mind. We support the practice of healthcare as it should be, as it once was. And again, we help people find their solutions, because overall, nobody should be out there navigating the healthcare system alone. Where do you find board certified patient advocates? Arizona has a fabulous association of patient advocates. And then there's also the PAC board has their list of board certified agent advocates from all over the country. So take a breath. I'm at the end. And anyone have any questions? If we got a couple minutes.
Yes, Joan, I think I saw one in the chat, but you might have already answered it really. Do you accompany a patient to doctor visits? You already addressed that, because sometimes the non-medical company will take them and then you'll meet them there.
Right.
The other part of that question is, do you or can you act as power of attorney for that patient? So elaborate more on that, because I think you did touch on it, but I think that that's important.
Thank you. And those are big questions. So I am the second in line as a power of attorney for two of my clients that their kids are all out of state, because I refer to myself as being the boots on the ground. I'm the one that can get to them the fastest. However, my guideline in that is, if something were to happen, I will have all of you, they're all on speed dial. I will have them on a conference call. I will not make any of those decisions if I know it's against the family. And again, I can't know everything, but I also work with my clients to do the things like create what their wish list is. What are their final wishes? What do they want? Again, we've got all the DNR information signed. We've got all those things in place. So there are some patient advocates that actually act as, I don't want to use the word executors, but there is a role that they play as a quote unquote professional power of attorney. And it could be in the medical field. And I don't want to go there. That's not my thing. I've got enough to do here, and there's plenty to keep me busy, but that's their thing. But there are people out there that do it. For me, I think that's a lot of responsibility. But again, but the need is out there. I have a client right now that her power of attorney, yesterday was her diagnosis day. So she's got vascular dementia, and her brother, who's her POA, is in California, and he's got his own cadre of medical issues, and he's doing pushback saying, I don't want this responsibility. But we had to wait until we had the diagnosis. So we're now probably going to go the next route, which looks at, getting the county involved and whatever. Again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So that's a very, very big question with lots of sidelines. It's
Okay.
it's a lot. None of this is easy. None of it is, the world is no longer straightforward.
Joan, in the case of getting the county involved, rather than going that far, because that whole idea is a little scary,
Yep.
can the family identify you to take over?
I don't want it.
legal?
They could, but I'm going to say no. I don't want that responsibility. And in this particular case, there's a wild card daughter out there who says she wants nothing to do with mom, but she's fired me 3 and 4 times. So, and I'm still here. So, she's a wild card. And again, you don't know what you don't know. And I don't look forward. I don't look forward to going through the whole overseeing, having someone assigned by the state, by the county. I don't want to do it, but we got to do something, because we don't want to get caught when something big happens, and then there's all kinds of liabilities. Yeah, that, I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, but I'm open to anyone if, and again, there are, but that's only the financial piece. I don't know if there are other services out there that do the medical piece. I know some fiduciary services offer the piece where they will do the financial POA part of it, but the medical piece is very questionable. And I'm open to learn. I'm open to hear more.
I've
Joan.
heard some nightmare stories about the financial part too. And I had also heard that there was now some type of certification. I don't think that's the right word for it, but that a person had to go through the judicial system in order to be a legal and legitimate fiduciary. Do you know whether that is?
Oh, that is so tight. Yes, that's really happening, because this particular client I have, who was well on her way, and when I got involved, I started looking for a fiduciary. They wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole, because again, the world is litigious. And what the response they provided me was, you might be able to find a newbie in the fiduciary world who will take it on, because they quote unquote don't know any better, but we doubt it. So that world, again, get your ducks lined up in a row now. If I had had my druthers, I would have done some other things with this woman if I had a longer time with her, etc. But as far as even exploring moving her financial stuff into someplace that has that kind of backup for that reason. And I don't know. But again, the best way to manage it is through proactive means. Get all the ducks in a row first.
Well, who do you trust? I mean, bottom line is you can't trust anybody anymore.
How about that? I agree. I could not agree with you more. I could not agree with you more. And again, and seniors are sometimes, again, when I go in to tell them what it is I can do to help them with, they get nervous and scared because they don't know me from Adam, of course. And I try to develop a relationship with them, and we do trial. I mean, and again, with my agreement, either one of us can drop out of the agreement with, like, a 4 or 5 day letter just saying, we're dropping here, passing all the information back to you, destroying all the information that you shared with me because of HIPAA guidelines and whatever else, and just the whole confidentiality piece. So yeah, It's tough out there.
Well,
Get
that
your
was
get your
something.
get your ducks lined up.
The HIPAA rule is something else that you struck on that I want to ask about, because you're talking about you've got to back up and you're sharing all this stuff with other people that's got better qualifications than you do, and so on and so forth. How did they fall under this? Are you liable for sharing HIPAA, or is your client? I mean, who releases that information?
The client releases the information, and with my client agreement information, it's stated in there that I myself, as Peaceful Easy Healing, or anyone working representing Peaceful Easy Healing, has the ability to fall within that HIPAA form. If I'm answering you correctly.
You are.
Okay.
All right. A client.
Along those same lines, I have another question, Joan. So you did parallels of ASNAHA, and I assume you were referring to AAPA, the
Yes.
association.
Yes.
So how?
No. I was referring to the PAC board.
Oh, okay. Right. Because I was thinking AAPA didn't come in. So how does someone in non-medical that wants to reach out to find a patient advocate, how do they really know? Obviously, if someone is part of that, they have the credentials that are required. So do people have to have a certificate that they show them? I mean, what identifies them as actually going through all the steps and being certified versus the another person that, just like the non-medical world, when you've got Joe Schmo out there off the streets that lives in a retirement community that takes care of somebody. Oh, well, I can be a patient advocate for you. I can take you. I mean, so how can people know that they have a true board certified? They can look it up online.
Right. The board certified patient advocates, this pacboard.org, has a listing of every board certified patient advocate in the country.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's also people in international as well, even though the test is done to United standards and so on and so forth, the United States standards. But everybody, the gathering mode is through this pacboard.org. And they actually have you listed, because there's 2 tests a year that are given, spring and the fall. And I was part of the spring. So I was certified in April of 2023. So I'm in that class.
Okay.
And it says I'm in Arizona and whatever. And then you would go from there. So that would be a way you would do it. The other thing is, again, through the certification mode, I go in to see a client and I bring a resume. So there's certain, I don't bring my little certificate saying here I am, but there are just things that we have to do. And we tell people about, what the PAC board is and what the process is to get certified. And again, that, like you said, the little Harry down the street here who calls himself a patient advocate. And even for me, I have called myself an advocate for years, helping people find their voice and speaking up for people that don't have a voice, etc. And I got to the point of saying, I need to professionalize this for me because of the other people out there that are doing what they're doing and calling themselves advocates, because it's easy. And now advocate and advocacy is a hot word. Everybody's an advocate.
Yeah.
In all kinds of fields. So the term is getting diluted. And that's almost making me feel a little bit better in that I can then truly call myself a BCPA, a board certified patient advocate, versus an advocate. I will advocate for you. And then I tell them what the same thing you do when you're out there telling people why it's sharing with them why it's important for them to use an ASNAHA member agency versus
Anything else?
anyone who's hung. I mean, the lack of licensure is an issue in that regard. And, you know, this board certification, the board itself for this, they decided they wanted to go one more level and they created the certification, which again, if you look at something like Passers, so Passers is there, but they created a certification exam for their agents, their placement agents, so that they could say, yes, I'm part of Passers, but I went through this testing, this study, this testing, etc. So I do, and I'm living by those means.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. This was an excellent presentation, and I recognize the slide again when you brought it up, but of course, you know your stuff better than I, so I did not retain everything that you covered, but I think it was good that we brought it up for people again, hopefully. So
Well,
thank you for all of the valuable information, and hopefully it opens up people's eyes to include another facet that they can provide as far as a resource to their clients. So we appreciate everything that you do for ASNAHA and for your presentation today. Thank you very much.
well, thank
I'd like
you.
to
Namaste.
Namaste. I'd like to remind you that there will be no December education session, but don't forget to RSVP for our December 4th happy hour. Check the ASNAHA website calendar for details. The ASNAHA Board of Directors want to thank all of you for participating today. Watch for advertising for our 2024 sessions forthcoming via MailChimp. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great afternoon and a fabulous holiday season.